one. With Rick Barnes, Brent Hubbs, VolQuest.com. Basketball Media Day, time to play basketball. Simple question. Why does Rick Barnes like this basketball team?
You know, Brent, I think more than anything is their attitude towards wanting to get better. From the time that they've walked on this campus, and two of them came in May for the mini semester, and then we obviously, everyone came back in June and July, and we've had a lot of time with them, and their attitudes about embracing what we've asked them to do. The older players have done returning players have done a terrific job, really trying to let them understand it's going to be a lot harder than they think, because I think everyone comes in at the beginning think it's going to be fairly easy, which is never easy, but I just, again, it's a group of guys that you enjoy being around every day, and that's where it all gets started, and we just appreciate that they've been willing to want to be coached and have bought into it.
Would you have been stunned if that was not the case, given the effort you and your staff put into recruiting, to the personality part of who these guys are? Would you have, could you have ever imagined sitting here going, well, I don't know that they know how to work very hard, or they're not willing to work very hard?
You know, that's a great point, and you know, not all of them have been the same. You know, Drew Pember has struggled. You know, he got here, and you know, he early got hurt in the weight room, missed a lot of the summer. Then he's had a foot issue he's had to deal with, and there is no doubt it's been a big awakening for him. A couple guys, when you go back and you think about Devontae Gaines' ticket, probably surprised all of us more than we even could imagine with what he did this summer, and then he was cruising along pretty good to where we knew that he was going to get some good minutes as a freshman, but then he breaks his thumb in just a freak way, you know, and has missed a important part of the year right now, but has stayed engaged in a good way, knowing that when he comes back he's going to have to help us. You know, Josiah James I thought had a great summer, but you know, he too worked. He's one of those guys, I mean, passion. He just got a great passion for the game. And Olivier, we knew he was talented, but again, more than we thought, to be quite frank, and a guy that we think it has a great future. And the neat thing about him, he doesn't even know it. I mean, he doesn't even yet have an inkling of how good he really can be. And if he continues to work like he is, it'll all come together for him. And then obviously you throw in you know, Urosh, that you hope that it works out with him to get a waiver, but those guys have all improved. But to answer your question, you think you know what you're getting, but you don't always know until you get to live with it every single day. And so this group as a whole has been, again, I don't know if there's anything I could say about any of them other than, you know, I wish Drew hadn't have had to encounter some of the things that he did, because he's a guy that we think can help us.
Let's backtrack a little bit in the recruiting process. What are the intangibles? What are the things when you go to a gym, when you make your phone calls to talk to people surrounding a kid? I mean, look, you know if a guy can shoot, okay? You know if a guy can score, if he can come off the dribble. What does a guy have to have for Rick Barnes to recruit him, whether he's 2 stars, 3 stars, 5 stars, top 100, top 10, whatever he is? What's Rick Barnes got to see out of somebody?
Well, I mean, you know, come on now. We know it's got to be talent. There's got to be some talent there. And like when you go back to a Grant Williams, I mean, he showed you enough during the recruiting process that you knew that he had something there in him. But once you met with him, you realize that again, like most high school guys, they're young, naive, and they all think that they're probably a little bit further along than they might think. Even the best of the best, but. You know what, it was really, when you go in there, we know how we want to do things here in our program. It's important that when we do bring guys in, and I've got an experienced staff, and I think I have the best staff in the country, and I'm sure most coaches feel that way, but I truly feel that way. I think about looking at them each day, and I could say, do I think I could get someone better? And I don't think I could with the staff that I have right now. So they do their part. They know that what we expect from our players. And we're very transparent. We're brutally honest during the recruiting process, but we want people that truly and talent's got to be there, but people that say, hey, you know what, I want to get better, and I want to be in a place, I want to be pushed, but they mean it, and they know that, you know, that they've got to go to class. They can't let anything bog them down. It can bog them down, but it really is a staff-wise. We all try to see them. Even when one guy sees a guy, they're going to have the other coaches go look and say, hey, what do you think? And so we're all in it together.
I read a story out of Boston where Brad Stevens talked about Grant Williams' basketball IQ. And look, he was a smart guy. He knew the game, had a feel for the game when you recruited him. But as his former coach now, how pleasing is it when you hear guys at the next level, coaches and everybody, scouts at the next level, talk about these guys coming out of Tennessee know how to play?
Well, you know, it makes us feel good, obviously, but, you know, the fact is Grant does have a great basketball IQ, and I've said as good as any player I've ever coached, but he wanted that. You know, he came in and he often, you know, I don't care, he wanted to know every position on the floor. He wanted to know what the point guard was supposed to do. He wanted to know, but people laughed about him. He'd be on the free throw line, and he would say to his teammates, the guy shooting is a 53% free throw shooter, get ready for the rebound. And people thought it was like gamemanship, but it wasn't like that. He was really truly telling his teammates, we've got to get ready. There's a good chance this free throw is going to be missed. But for him to know that, and he could tell you that almost about every player, every really? Game. But he took it that serious. And you know, like the best players that we coach, you know, this facility, Pratt Pavilion, is really as much their dorm room as anywhere they go, because they really enjoy being here. We've got the great locker room down there, so they spend a lot of time in here. And with that, there's film going almost every day somewhere. And Grant was one of those guys that if I were to be watching film, he'd come over and say, hey, what are you looking at? And but that's how he was. And but he did have that, and he took pride in wanting to know not only his position but what everybody else had to do.
Maybe not to that degree, but does this team have that hunger besides just putting up a bunch of jump shots? Is Lamonte Turner, Jordan Bound, are they at the level where their improvement of the game is beyond physical improvement, beyond just putting up shots?
Yes, I think there's no doubt that's where Lamonte has grown. I mean, you know, he was our first recruit when you go back 5 years ago, and he has grown tremendously in that part of trying to understand the game in different ways. And you do it by watching tape. I mean, when I think of quarterback preparation, and you know more than me about that, I have to believe they spend a lot of time watching film. Sure. I have to believe they do, and I don't think it's any different. The best players, I've always said, they have eyes like a Kodak camera. They can see it. The game slows down for them, and they can pick up. They can see 10 guys, and obviously, do I think you can learn that? I do, because I think I've learned that as a coach to a point to where it's a fault, because I see too much sometimes, especially in practice. I want to stop it because I want every detail. I very seldom watch the ball. You know, I'm watching all the other things, and I think that as you grow in coaching, you go from seeing the ball, what's going on the ball, where you start seeing it all. And but like I said, as a coach, sometimes it can, especially in practice, because you want it all right.
And I'm sure that happens over time. Do you remember stages where how you ran a practice, what you were looking for in practice was different, maybe from Providence to Texas? I don't know if it's changed a whole lot since you've been here, but do you remember when it kind of clicked that way, that you were looking much more big picture than you were, hey, let's draw up a play to score?
You know, that's really a great question. And I will say this: my first year, you know, as an assistant coach, I took a lot of pride in being organized and learning from every team that I had to scout. Something that you liked, I kept files on it, and almost to a point of organization was all I was doing. And you know what I'm saying? I was being so organized that I was missing the big picture. Okay. But when I became a head coach, and I had files like you wouldn't believe, and I was out speaking one time at Fork Union Military Academy, and Fletcher Ayers is a terrific high school military coach, and I'd been around Joe Gallagher at St. John's Prep in Washington, D.C., and Morgan Wooten, Stu Vetter, guys that were just terrific coaches. And I learned from those guys, and I watched those guys coach at a level where they could have coached anywhere. But I remember one day Fletcher Ayers said to me, he said, it's going to take you 5 years when you become a head coach, because he said, right now you think you know how you want to play, and what's going to happen is you're going to try to reinvent the wheel. And he was right. Really? But what I did do the first couple of years that I became a head coach, the guys that I had worked for, Gary Williams and Wimp Sanderson and Joe Harrington, things that they did was really how I started out. But again, you got 3 different guys. And I'm trying to do a little bit of this. A lot of Gary, because he was the last guy I worked for, and Coach Sanderson was a terrific coach. What he did and some of what Joe did, and even what I had some of the things at Davidson College with Eddie Biedenbach. So I was doing a little bit of too many things. Then I was trying to add in some things I'd learned through scouting, from whether it was scouting Coach Knight at Indiana, Sonny Smith at Auburn, Zone. I mean, I could go on and on about it.
Right.
But you do get to a point to where it's not about, you learn this. It doesn't matter what I know. It's what can I teach them? What can I get them to know? And practice can't be a coaching clinic every day.
How important is it to have that mentality with this basketball team because of the youth that you have? Because your file's this thick, you know everything backwards and forwards in it, but Josiah doesn't. He's trying to get week to week, and he's trying to manage school and playing at this level. I was like, how important is it for you to remind yourself, hey, I've got to make sure we do what they can do, not what I want to do or what I know to do?
Really important. And that's where I think you grow as a coach, because you realize that you can't put a square peg in a round hole. And so that's why I think it's important for coaches to continue to grow in the game and understand that just like you ask players to get better every day, you've got to do it as a coach. You got to do it as your staff, because as a staff, I've got great respect for the knowledge that my staff brings to the table. But I will tell them, look, there's 1,000 things that we can do. We got to figure out right now what we can get them to do well. And then I do think, even you go back to the last 4 years, we've added. As the better Grant Williams became, the more we did. The better Admiral Schofield, the more we did. The better Jordan Bone, the more we did. And I think that we know we can do quite a bit with our older players. But I learned this too, is that from a physical standpoint, older players can take everything you throw at them. They can, if you want to go out and grind them, they can take it, but they don't need it. Younger players need it, but they can't take it. They just physically and mentally can't take it. So there's a wave you got to ride with them and with your team. But I also think that the basketball side of it, it took me a long time, Brent, to learn 2 things that I heard. I promise you, my first year as an assistant coach, when I got to understand it around the country, they were doing these great coaching clinics. I heard Coach Knight one time say the mental to the physical is like 4:1. It took me a lifetime to figure that out, how important the physical was. And Coach Wooden always used the term about the mental, about don't mistake activity for achievement. And what I took from that is, you can be doing something, being over-organized, being so overly organized, I was staying busy and active, but I really wasn't getting anything done. You know what I'm saying? I mean, right. You say, well, it helped build some things, and I do think it did. But just to go out on the floor and I've had, being where I've been, I've had a chance to spend a lot of time around NBA teams, and you learn how much they can get done in 15 and 20 minutes. But now take it, you're dealing with some of the very best players, right. But you've got to also bring that mentality to your program, because where they want to go, they've got to learn to do that as well, be efficient. So I think you definitely keep learning, but also know that with our team today, we've thrown quite a bit at them, to be quite honest, and we're doing it to find out more about what Olivier can do, what right. Josiah can do, because we might need to add more. And so we're letting them kind of dictate how quickly we move.
All right, last couple of questions. Jamal Turner, your first recruit, tells a story you threw him out of practice his first day here. He didn't know what in the world happened to him. He's now a leader of your basketball team. Does it surprise you that this is where Lamonte is in your program, given kind of his freshman year, given what you got when you recruited him and signed him and inherited him?
Well, where I'm not surprised, he has the one thing that I think separates the real competitors from those that aren't maybe as competitive. He's got tremendous passion. I mean, he has passion. He loves this game. And you knew that from the very first time you talked to him. You knew that from the very first time You watch him as a freshman. Now, in terms of him understanding how to play, no, he didn't.
Right.
But he's never ever shied away from competition. He's the ultimate gym rat. I mean, he's put more time in Pratt Pavilion than anybody in the time that we've been here. So where he has grown to, and as we've watched him grow, am I surprised? I mean, that's part of the process. You want to see that in every
right.
player. I mean, so I don't think as coaches you're ever surprised when somebody continues to grow if they want it. And he let it be known from day one that he wanted to be the best that he could be.
So he liked to be coached hard.
He likes to be coached hard. He is a guy that wants a truth teller in his life, someone that tells him every day. He wants to know what he needs to do today, and if he didn't have a good practice, like you watch him, as soon as practice is over, he's right sitting down with the coach to watch film. He wants to know right as soon as practice is over with, where did I come up short, what didn't I do, and he's learning how to really. He's always kind of led more by example, you know, just being a everyday bring it, you know, pit bull kind of guy that gets after it. And like I've said, he can disrupt practice because of his intensity, because he's got a group of guys that are learning some things, and there's a group of guys that have never had a guy like him on the court where he's going at it every day. Josiah James, Jordan Bowden, those guys have never had someone come after him like he does every day.
Last question. Rick Barnes' biggest concern about this team, offensive or defensive, as you're a month away from exhibition play?
You know, again, Brent, I don't know if I'm concerned about any of the X's and those parts of it. I think right now where we are today, it's getting everyone healthy and get them back. And obviously we like to think and be optimistic and hope that the NCAA, you know, clears Urosh. You know, that's important. I mean, that's a big thing. If not, you know, we need everybody healthy. We need that. And I do know this team is going to get better. There's no doubt in my mind. They're going to continue to grow, and people are going to enjoy watching that growth. But right now, from an X and O, I don't have any concerns with that. It's about they continue to understand the game and situations. I mean, because we've spent a lot of time on that this so far, because we're going to be in a lot of close games like you are every year. But up to this point, it's been a fun group.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate
Good luck.
you. Thanks.